In this video, I've thoroughly discussed the topic of adding positions from several aspects. Adding positions is a double-edged sword. If we do it right, it will significantly increase our funds. If we do it wrong, we might face a terrible situation, where it could be the result of a margin call. Generally, there are two common ways to increase your position. One is to increase your position in line with the trend, and the other is to increase your position at a disadvantage. Before we choose a method to increase our position, we must have done in-depth research before formulating it. Regardless of which method of adding positions, there are logical and purposeful motives behind it. Since adding positions is a double-edged sword, it has both advantages and disadvantages. Next, let's deeply dismantle the overall principles and logic behind the positions. First, let's define adding positions based on the trend. In my understanding, taking advantage of the trend to increase a position is like adding a floating profit, which means gradually increasing your position under the condition of profit. Generally, we would use this method to increase our position in a trend-setting environment. This method is generally a trading method within many traders' calculations. With this definition of increasing our position according to the trend, we just need to figure it out. In which position should we increase the quality of this position, and how much should we add? What is the purpose and reason for doing this, etc.? It must be done right. The principle behind this method of adding positions. Clear out all the pros and cons. Only after we understand it thoroughly can our three-party system be effectively executed in the long term. Many people encounter a situation where they suddenly think of a particular way to add positions as very good, but without thorough and detailed research. They don't fully understand its logic and principles and directly apply it with real money. Of course, when continuous losses occur, they start to deeply doubt this method of adding positions and then decide to give up. If your trading strategy must include such an adding method, please make sure you understand the logic and principles behind it and have enough reasons to support it. This adding method is valid, positive, and beneficial for your trading. You need enough reasons to back it up. Next, I will use this chart to illustrate. At what position should we add? How much should we add? What are its advantages and disadvantages? However, I want to emphasize that everyone should not casually use these adding methods I mentioned because I myself do not use them either. I just want to explain their logic and language clearly. To avoid unnecessary losses and misleads for everyone, this is only for reference. This is a very clear trend. First, we need to clarify the position at which we should add. Where should it be? In a trending environment, there are generally two types of adding positions. One is to add positions during a pullback, and the other is to add positions when the morphological structure breaks through. For example, the positions of circles 1, 2, and 3 are the positions for adjusting and adding positions. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of these two different ways of adding positions? The advantage of adding positions through a pullback is to stop losses. Smaller, the profit margin will be very large. The downside is that this position has a lot of uncertainties because we can't determine whether this market will form a trend structure. Even if a trend structure is formed, we cannot determine it. Patrol the lines, trend lines, or whether horizontal line support is still effective. If you choose this method of adding positions, you must ensure the possibility of continuous losses being stopped. Then, breaking through the advantage of adding positions means the position of each additional position. They are all high points that form a trend structure. It's conducive to the continuation of the trend. Once a trend is formed, the success rate of this method of adding positions is still relatively high. The downside is that this standard trend structure is not common. It's hard to find, and sometimes it's easy to find a lot of empty space. Choosing this kind of installation method usually has requirements for form and breaking the K line. Sometimes, we might even chase after high positions, which could be possible. So it has many drawbacks, but we must grasp these drawbacks. After understanding them clearly, if we can accept this disadvantage, then we can choose a way to add positions. 3 points. We know the position for adding positions and also understand the advantages and disadvantages of positions. So, should we add positions in a pyramid shape or in a reverse pyramid shape? These two ways of adding positions will result in completely different profit outcomes. First, let me point out that the correct way to add positions for the general public should be in a pyramid shape, meaning each time you add positions, it will be smaller than the previous one. For example, at position circle 1, if we add half a lot, so at position circle 2, the position where we should add is 0.5 lots. Then at position circle 3, the position size would be 0.25 lots, which means at high positions, the added position size should be lighter because as the market goes higher, the possibility of a reversal increases. This method of adding positions has another biggest advantage. When the market pulls back from a high position, our profits are relatively controllable. If it's in a reverse pyramid shape, however, once the market pulls back slightly from a high position, our profits will be instantly wiped out. Therefore, before choosing any way to add positions, we must weigh its pros and cons carefully. Alright, next let's talk about adding positions. In my understanding, my own warehouse is just adding to the deficit. That is, when you are losing money, you gradually increase your position to cover the cost. One is that there are two scenarios for increasing your position. One is within the plan, and the other is outside the plan. What is within the plan is our system. Our strategy itself is a way to increase our position in this trend. Off sentence, it refers to our trading method, which our system doesn't have at all. But we were influenced by the market during the trading process. For example, if you make a transaction and suffer a significant loss, you're not willing to face such a loss result. Unwilling to close the position, so I came up with the idea of covering up at a low or high position. Then this behavior goes beyond the rules of your trading, which is an unplanned disadvantage plus margin. Actually, this way of adding positions is when you're trading recklessly. Let's first look at the trend plus margin within the plan. What are his principles and motivations? First, it needs to be clear that when most people formulate strategies to increase positions due to differences, they will consider such strategies to be suitable. Do it in the legitimate market, but only a small number of people don't look at the gold ring, they only look at the price. So for the example below, I will use a positive picture to explain. First, we need to know what the characteristics of a volatile environment are. The operating structure of a volatile environment is to move back and forth within a range. The principle of this kind of oscillation is to utilize this back and forth pattern to achieve profitability. However, we know the structure of how this market operates. It's not every time. It can run just right to the top edge or the bottom edge. So the strategy for increasing your position in the interview is to guaranteed not to miss the market. It will start to be laid out in advance, and when approaching the upper edge or lower edge, use a smaller position to enter first. If the market continues to expand upwards or downwards, then it will continue to increase positions and perform operations at a disadvantage. The advantages of this operation can selling at a low cost and avoiding the market in space. The drawbacks are also very obvious. If the market breaks through the fluctuation range to form a trend, then it will. The system for traders who suffer huge losses is not perfect, and it was still in place before breaking through the trend formed between regions. Choose to increase your position at a disadvantage, and in the end, it's the result of a margin call. Another key point is the position where you increase your position at a disadvantage. Most traders use the rice gold system for production. Warehouse expansion method. For example, if there are 3 songs at midnight when entering the venue, then the second song will be 6 minutes past midnight. After losing money, the third transaction is a little second-hand, and the fourth transaction is a quarter. In my opinion, this kind of inverted pyramid method of adding orders is either a liquidation or a huge profit. Actually, I don't really approve of this method of operation. I don't agree, but that doesn't mean this operation mode is wrong. We have to admit that during the shock period, the strategy of adding positions on July 4th was implemented. His success rate will be much higher than being a knight. So many people, when they can't tolerate the situation of continuous stop loss, will eventually choose to do this kind of thing. In a volatile environment, any trading method has its inherent strength. This market is like a vast ocean. The things we can actually pay attention to are just a small part of it. Our personal understanding and perspective are actually very limited. You can't jump to conclusions about which one is right and which one is wrong. So, my video is just to explain the logic and principles. It doesn't represent which one is good, which one is bad. So there's no right or wrong in choosing a trading method. I believe that as long as you thoroughly study a trading method, understand its drawbacks, and can accept this defects in strategy, then it's a good strategy. As the saying goes, all roads lead to Rome. No trading system or strategy is necessarily the best. Finally, let me talk about the worst-case scenario, which is being unplanned. The trend is defined. The unplanned trend of adding positions refers to the fact that our trading strategy and systems simply do not have this kind of counter-timing of adding positions. It's just that our human behavior has been influenced by the market environment during the trading process, and our personal behavior has deviated, leading to actions like adding positions at a disadvantage. This is an unplanned increase in positions at a disadvantage. First of all, this situation is very dangerous. There's a possibility that it could lead to a stock explosion at any time. So why does this situation occur for us humans? This is directly related to our human nature. We humans have greed and desire, so our behavior can also be influenced by the market and change. As I mentioned earlier, when we first compare, when you're older and you're not willing to accept this kind of loss or close your position, then you might end up in the idea of covering positions at the bottom or at a high position, or adding positions at a disadvantage. At this point, the environment hasn't affected our behavior yet, but it has already affected our thinking. If we are really at a high or low position, if we engage in this kind of counter trend, the market environment will shift from influencing our thinking to affecting our behavior. So, how exactly should we solve this problem? I believe that only the accumulation of time can solve this problem. There's no need to change. Because the market is like a vast ocean. We can't be sure what kind of behavior he might trigger at what point in time. What might trigger today is an increase in your position against the trend, but what might trigger tomorrow could be heavy positions, frequent trading, carrying orders, and so on. Only when the market triggers a bad behavior can you feel the changes in your heart more. And you need to find out what triggers this behavior. You still need to delve deeper into understanding. And studying such factors, only you truly understand that one thing has brought you great risks. Then you can effectively make changes. What I tell you, or what I hear, you don't use. There's a good saying in this market. We can only lie down in the pit we're supposed to, and then our behavior will gradually improve. I hope the topics discussed in this video can bring you some inspiration. If you like my videos, click to follow and save them. Your actions are mine. Update new video to ping like.